This is where our theme song will be.
Hey everyone, I'm Bjorn.
And I'm Marina.
We started our CNC business on January 1st of 2023, and by February 15th, our Onefinity was running on average about 10 to 12 hours a day just to keep up with orders.
We went from 0 to 100 almost overnight, but we were ready for it.
Now that doesn't mean we didn't have our fair share of issues.
Here are 5 things that could have broken us and how we overcame them.
Now, one of our first hurdles with starting our business was tools. We didn't have any. Actually, that's not totally true. We had the CNC, we had a 12-inch compound sliding miter saw, and we also had a broken table saw that came with our house. So we pretty much needed everything, and we came up with a $100 rule. If we could buy it new from the store for $100, we would. Everything else we bought from Facebook Marketplace. Now, this $100 rule didn't last long once we learned that there was a difference between hobbyist tools and professional tools.
After burning out a lot of small power tools, we realized that the more expensive tools are designed to power on for longer, and in the case of sanders, are ergonomic and designed to absorb vibration. Luckily, we realized that before doing any permanent damage to our bodies.
It was close.
The lesson here, just making do with cheap tools can end up costing you more in the end.
The next thing that we learned very quickly is that when your machine is running 12 hours a day, dust is going to be an issue. And it's not something that you can ignore. And to be honest, your lungs won't let you. So after our first month, we had about a ½ inch of dust on every surface of our workshop. And we still find evidence of that when we move things around. We found a great cheap air filter on Facebook Marketplace. And as soon as we changed the filters on it, it was like practically brand new. And it completely changed the working experience in the shop.
On top of that, the physical disposal was almost a full-time job. We went from a shop vac to a 1.5 horsepower dust collector, and finally added a second stage into a 55-gallon drum.
And we found that on Facebook Marketplace.
Now that we have 2 CNCs in operation, we can fill that drum by the end of each day. And now in our town, our only option for disposal is to take that drum to our local waste depot and dump it. We ended up purchasing 7 drums, which means we only have to do that job once a week.
One of the most surprising issues on this list is getting and managing hardwoods. We live on the west coast of Canada, and even though we're on an island, I was completely surprised that it was almost impossible to find a decent supplier of hardwood. But any of our local suppliers didn't really carry that much, and what they did have wasn't the quality that we needed on a regular basis. We eventually found a supplier about 2.5 hours away from our house, and because of the volume we needed, we were able to negotiate a really decent price. So now, even though it's delivered right to our door, we're paying way less than we were before, and they can handle any volume we need.
And now, this may sound obvious, but as your business scales, so will your scrap production. It's important to be aware of how much you have on hand because you're going to start filling spare rooms with it. Of course, there are lots of scrap project ideas out there, like cutting boards, which may seem like an easy answer, but keep in mind, every other woodworker is out there trying to sell cutting boards too. So you might need to come up with a product that uses scrap in a unique way. And worst case scenario, with the cost of wood these days, there's always someone online looking to buy scrap at a discount. If only there is a marketplace online where you could do that.
We purchased our house from a woodworker who ran a business out of our garage, but it only had 1 outlet and 2 extension cords coming from other ends of the house. I don't know how he did it.
Unless you've got power!
But that was just enough for us to be able to run our Onefinity, our dust collector, our router, and one other large tool to be able to prepare more wood to put in that machine all day. Just remember it's important to keep your dust collector and your router or spindle on a separate outlet than your control unit to avoid any electromagnetic frequencies. We learned that one the hard way.
I don't care that you broke your
Onefinity.
It's also important to know the amperage of what's plugged in. For example, a typical outlet is 15 amps and a Makita router takes 6.5 amps, and that's almost half the usage right there.
There is nothing worse than blowing a fuse when your machine is mid-carve.
When we got our second CNC, we were forced to get a separate panel for our garage. It was a big expense, but by that time, we could afford it.
Our shop is about 20 by 10 feet. And when we first started using it, we used it in its original configuration because the guy was a woodworker, so we figured he knew what he was doing. But nothing we had fit correctly, so we spent most of our time moving things around and trying to make do when the answer was just scrapping everything and starting fresh. But that also wasn't the answer because as things change, so does your workflow.
The best advice we can give here is to invest in some good casters and put them on everything. Our entire shop is now mobile and modular. Think of your shop as a living, breathing thing that can constantly change with your needs. Today's sanding table might be tomorrow's outfeed table.
Now, all these problems are great to have because it means you're busy and making money. But even if you're not busy yet, you need to be thinking about these problems and more because there is nothing worse than being unprepared. We saw it all the time while working for Shopify that a business can fall apart faster than you realize.
Story time. Around when we started our business, we were following another maker couple who had a great product idea and an even better social media presence. When their product went viral, we watched the rise and then the fall of their business over about a 3-month period. It was really sad because we were rooting for them. If you take anything away from today's video, it's that
Not being able to scale and meet the demands that you created is an almost certain death sentence for your business. Once you break a customer's trust, it's almost impossible to get that back. So that's it. We hope you like this video.
it was a little different than our other formats.
If you think we missed anything or you have anything to add, let us know in the comments. Have a good night.
This is where our theme song will be.